In the early hours before dawn, when river fog lay low and sound traveled farther than it should, men who worked the water often spoke less. In the spring of 1905, along a lesser-traveled stretch of the Ohio River, just south of Marietta, the river moved as it always had, slow, heavy, and indifferent. To those who worked it, the river was not mysterious, it was practical. It flooded, it shifted sandbars, it took lives when men grew careless, but it did nothing without reason. That belief would be tested. One such vessel was the Eleanor May, a modest packet boat making regular night runs between Parkersburg and Portsmouth. She carried no passengers. That season-only freight and traveled often after sunset to keep to schedule. Life aboard followed routine. Watches were kept, engines were checked, meals were taken at the same hours each night. The river, though unpredictable, was familiar. Men knew the sound of floating debris, the pull of submerged logs, the shape of shadows cast by moonlight on moving water. And yet, during the first week of May, small irregularities were noticed. Nothing dramatic. Deckhands began remarking on unexpected drag, a sensation of resistance beneath the hull that did not match known currents. The pilot blamed submerged timber, common after spring thaw. The engineer adjusted power and thought no more of it. But the drag did not behave like debris. It came and went. It moved. On 2 separate nights, crewmen on watch reported seeing dark movement beneath the surface. Not breaking the water, not rippling outward as a fish or log would, but sliding beneath the hull in a way that defied easy description. They did not speak of it openly at first. Another man, Eli Harker, told a reporter years later that the water seemed thicker, though he admitted the word made little sense even to him. No reports of large animals or wreckage upstream. Still, something unsettled them. At night, when the engine slowed near shallower bends, the water beneath the boat no longer sounded empty. Men described a muffled absence of noise, as though the river briefly swallowed its own movement. On the shore, lights from farmhouses and docks flickered as usual. The world above the water remained unchanged, but below it, something felt wrong. No one claimed danger. No one spoke of fear. Not yet. By the end of that week, the Eleanor May continued her route as scheduled. No reports were filed, no warnings issued. The river remained open, indifferent to suspicion. And yet, among the men who worked those night runs, a quiet understanding had begun to form, spoken only in glances and pauses. Something beneath the water was not behaving as it should. And the river, which had always been predictable in its cruelty, was beginning to feel unfamiliar. The first incident that could not be dismissed occurred on the night of May 11, 1905. The Eleanor May was running southbound, her lamps hooded low against the fog. The river was calm, the surface barely disturbed beyond the slow churn of the paddle wheel. Visibility was poor, but not unusual for that time of year. Shortly after midnight, the pilot eased the vessel through a familiar bend where the channel narrowed and the current deepened. It was there, according to 3 separate accounts, that the engines labored suddenly, as though the boat had entered heavy water. At first, no one reacted. Such resistance was common near submerged snags. The engineer increased power. The hull vibrated slightly, then steadied. Then the resistance returned. This time, it did not pull backward. It pulled downward. Deckhands later described a subtle but unmistakable change in balance. The bow dipped just enough to send loose cargo shifting. One man lost his footing. Another reached instinctively for the rail. No impact was felt. No scraping. No sound of wood or iron striking debris. Only pressure. The pilot ordered the engine slowed. The river surface remained smooth. No sign of obstruction. No floating timber breaking free. The water directly beside the hull appeared darker than the surrounding current, absorbing what little light reached it. For several seconds, the vessel seemed held in place. Then, without warning, the pressure released. The Eleanor May surged forward, engines overcompensating, sending a rolling wake out across the river. Men were thrown against bulkheads. Tools clattered to the deck. When balance returned, the first reaction was irritation, not fear. The pilot cursed the river. The engineer blamed an unseen sandbar. A deckhand was sent forward with a pole to sound the water. The depth was normal. No obstruction was found. More troubling was what followed. As the boat resumed speed, a man posted on the starboard side, Henry Klein, a quiet watchman with nearly 20 years on the river, called out that something was moving alongside them, not above the surface, below it. Those nearest him saw only a shape long, darker than the water itself, passing beneath the hull, keeping pace despite the boat's speed. It did not break the surface. It did not create a wake. It simply moved. The pilot ordered lamps brought closer to the rail. Light spilled onto the water, but the shape remained indistinct, as though it existed deeper than the illumination could reach. After perhaps 10 seconds, it angled away, slipping beneath the stern and vanishing into the black water behind them. Silence followed. No one spoke immediately. When they did, the explanations came quickly and carefully. A school of large fish. A drifting mass of debris pulled by current. An optical distortion caused by light and fog. Each explanation was reasonable. Each was accepted aloud. But later, away from the deck, those same men admitted any's not because they had seen something extraordinary, but because what they had seen did not behave as expected. Fish scattered. Debris lagged behind. This had done neither. By morning, the incident was recorded only as temporary resistance and channel in the ship's log. No mention was made of shadows, movement, or fear. Still, word spread quietly along the river, not as rumor but as caution. Other boatmen began reporting similar sensations. Unexplained drag, deep movement beneath hulls, stretches of water where sounds seemed muted. Each account, taken alone, meant nothing. Together, they suggested a pattern. The river continued to carry traffic. No authorities were notified. No inspections ordered. Life along the banks went on unchanged. Yet among those who worked the night runs, confidence had been shaken. The water beneath them was no longer empty. And something, whatever it was, had made itself known without ever showing its form. By the third day on the river, the Mary Eliza no longer moved through unfamiliar water. She moved through watched water. What had begun as an isolated disturbance dismissed first as drift, then as current, had returned often enough that no one aboard could fully ignore it. The men did not speak of it openly at first. River crews learned early that naming a thing gives it weight. Still, patterns were forming, and patterns demanded attention. The shadow appeared only in certain reaches of the river, always where the banks narrowed, always where the water deepened suddenly and the current slowed, as though pooling before continuing on. It never surfaced. It never struck the hull. It remained beneath, pacing the boat at an uneven distance. Engineer Henry Caldwell was the first to note its size. From the engine room intake ports, he observed the water darken in broad sweeps too wide. He believed to be caused by floating debris. He later stated, in a letter to his brother dated April 22nd, that the shadow moved as a single mass, not broken or scattered, and not shaped like timber. Deckhand Samuel Price claimed he saw it shift direction. While leaning over the starboard rail near dusk, Price reported a movement below the surface that turned deliberately, matching the Mary Eliza's speed, before easing back into deeper water. He could not describe its outline, only that the water above it appeared thick, as if something large displaced the river without disturbing it. Each sighting increased the cruise, not through drama, but through repetition. Captain Rourke ordered closer observation. Boone was instructed to slow the boat through the deeper channels. Price and Henson were assigned additional watches along the rails, tasked with noting any change in the water's behavior. No weapons were brought out, no prayers were spoken. These were men still convinced there was an explanation, even if it eluded them. At night, the river became more difficult to read. The lamps cast limited halos across the surface, leaving the depths untouched. It was during these hours that the shadow drew closest. Several times, Boone felt the rudder resist not sharply, but as though the current itself hesitated. The compass remained steady. The engine maintained its rhythm, yet the vessel seemed momentarily reluctant to move forward. No impact followed. No sound, just delay. Sleep suffered. Conversation grew sparse. Meals were eaten quickly, with glances cast toward the windows. Caldwell wrote that the boiler pressure fluctuated slightly during these encounters, though inspection revealed no mechanical fault. Rourke noted, without comment, that his mileage calculations no longer matched the time underway. The river, for reasons he could not explain, was no longer behaving as it should. Still, the crew pressed on. They told themselves that rivers changed, that flood seasons rearranged channels, that perception, once unsettled, could deceive even experienced men. These explanations held until the afternoon. The shadow rose closer than it ever had before, not to the surface, but close enough to be unmistakable, and close enough that whatever lay beneath the Mary Eliza could no longer be dismissed as water alone. The moment came without warning, and without sound. It was the afternoon of April 23, 1905, as the Mary Eliza entered a long, narrow stretch south of Black Willow Reach, where the river pressed close against the limestone shelf on the eastern bank. The water here was known to be deep, too deep, some said, for anchors to find bottom, but it was otherwise unremarkable. No rapids, no known hazards. The sky was pale and overcast. The surface of the river lay flat, reflecting nothing. Shortly after 2 o'clock, Boone slowed the vessel at Captain Rourke's request. The current ahead appeared uneven, marked by a faint discoloration that stretched across the channel. Before anyone could comment, the water directly beneath the bow darkened completely. This time, there was no mistaking it. The shadow rose, not breaking the surface, not touching the hull, but filling the river beneath them. It moved with purpose, not drifting, not circling. For several seconds, the Mary Eliza passed over it, and in that span, the men saw something they later struggled to describe with precision. The water above the shadow did not ripple, it bulged, as if the river itself were being displaced from below. Price, gripping the rail, later said the darkness beneath them showed subtle variation, suggestions of mass rather than a flat stain. Caldwell believed the engine labored briefly, though the gauges showed no strain. Boone felt the rudder draw hard to port, then release, as though something had passed directly beneath it. Still, there was no contact, no scrape, no impact, no sound but the engine and the water slipping past the hull. Captain Rourke ordered full stop. The Mary Eliza slowed, then idled in the channel. The men leaned over the rails, watching. For a moment, nothing happened. The shadow remained, vast and unmoving, its boundaries indistinct but unmistakable. Then, slowly, it withdrew. Not downstream, not with the current. It sank straight down until the river returned to its ordinary darkness. The surface smoothed, the discoloration faded. The current resumed its course, as though uninterrupted. For several minutes, no one spoke. Rourke finally ordered the engines ahead at reduced speed. Boone complied, hands steady but pale. No one suggested turning back. No one suggested pursuing what they had seen. The river offered no sign of disturbance, no wake, no mark left behind. Yet the mood aboard the Mary Eliza had shifted irrevocably. What they had witnessed did not behave like debris. It did not behave like known animals. It did not behave like current or shoal or shadow cast by the banks. It responded to the boat, to its presence in a way that none of them could reconcile with experience. That evening, Rourke wrote more than mileage in his journal. His entry was brief, cautious, and carefully worded. He did not name what they saw. He did not speculate. He recorded only that a mass of unknown nature was observed beneath the vessel, causing temporary loss of headway. The river was quiet that night, but none of the men slept, and all of them understood that whatever lay beneath the water had now made itself known, not as rumor, not as imagination, but as something that had chosen, however briefly, to rise close enough to be seen. The moment came without warning, and without sound. It was the afternoon of April 23, 1905, as the Mary Eliza entered a long, narrow stretch south of Black Willow Reach, where the river pressed close against the limestone shelf on the eastern bank. The water here was known to be deep, too deep, some said, for anchors to find bottom, but it was otherwise unremarkable. No rapids, no known hazards. The sky was pale and overcast. The surface of the river lay flat, reflecting nothing. Shortly after 2 o'clock, Boone slowed the vessel at Captain Rourke's request. The current ahead appeared uneven, marked by a faint discoloration that stretched across the channel. Before anyone could comment, the water directly beneath the bow darkened completely. This time, there was no mistaking it. The shadow rose, not breaking the surface, not touching the hull, but filling the river beneath them. It moved with purpose, not drifting, not circling. For several seconds, the Mary Eliza passed over it, and in that span, the men saw something they later struggled to describe with precision. The water above the shadow did not ripple, it bulged, as if the river itself were being displaced from below. Price, gripping the rail, later said the darkness beneath them showed subtle variation, suggestions of mass rather than a flat stain. Caldwell believed the engine labored briefly, though the gauges showed no strain. Boone felt the rudder draw hard to port, then release, as though something had passed directly beneath it. Still, there was no contact, no scrape, no impact, no sound, but the engine and the water slipping past the hull. Captain Rourke ordered full stop. The Mary Eliza slowed, then idled in the channel. The men leaned over the rails, watching. For a moment, nothing happened. The shadow remained, vast and unmoving, its boundaries indistinct but unmistakable. Then, slowly, it withdrew. Not downstream, not with the current. It sank straight down until the river returned to its ordinary darkness. The surface smoothed, the discoloration faded. The current resumed its course, as though uninterrupted. For several minutes, no one spoke. Rourke finally ordered the engines ahead at reduced speed. Boone complied, hand steady but pale. No one suggested turning back. No one suggested pursuing what they had seen. The river offered no sign of disturbance, no wake, no mark left behind. Yet the mood aboard the Mary Eliza had shifted irrevocably. What they had witnessed did not behave like debris. It did not behave like known animals. It did not behave like current or shoal or shadow cast by the banks. It responded to the boat, to its presence in a way that none of them could reconcile with experience. That evening, Rourke wrote more than mileage in his journal. His entry was brief, cautious, and carefully worded. He did not name what they saw. He did not speculate. He recorded only that a mass of unknown nature was observed beneath the vessel, causing temporary loss of headway. The river was quiet that night, but none of the men slept, and all of them understood that whatever lay beneath the water had now made itself known, not as rumor, not as imagination, but as something that had chosen, however briefly, to rise close enough to be seen. The river did not keep their secret, but it did not give it away either. In the years that followed, the voyage of the Mary Eliza faded into obscurity, preserved only in fragments, brief notes, second-hand recollections, and the margins of documents never meant to endure. No formal inquiry was opened. No official statement was filed beyond routine shipping records to the wider world. April of 1905 passed without remark. What remained were the records the men kept for themselves. Captain Rourke's journal survives only in part, its final pages lost sometime after his retirement. The entry describing the incident was never expanded upon. He did not revisit it in later volumes. Those who knew him said he grew reluctant to speak of deep water, preferring short crossings and well-marked channels in his final years on the river. Elias Boone continued piloting for another decade. His annotated charts, now held in a regional historical collection, contain several unexplained symbols along the Ohio's small crosses, faint circles, and brief pencil marks with no legend. When asked late in life about these notations, Boone reportedly said only that they marked places where the river behaves differently. Henry Caldwell's letter was never published. It surfaced decades later among family papers, its language cautious and technical, avoiding speculation. He suggested that unusual submerged phenomena could exist in flood-swollen rivers, then ended the letter abruptly, changing the subject entirely. Of Price and Henson, little is known. Price left river work. Within 2 years, Henson stayed on, but refused assignments that took him through Black Willow Reach. Neither left a written account beyond what was later recalled by others. Newspapers of the period contain no mention of a creature, nor even of a specific sighting. At most, there are scattered references to odd currents, unexpected delays, and dark water in that region during high flood years. Such phrases were common, easily overlooked, and rarely questioned. No physical evidence was ever recovered. No damage to hull or rudder. No disturbance recorded on soundings. No changes in river traffic patterns beyond individual preference. Whatever passed beneath the Mary, Eliza left no measurable trace only the memory of mass, movement, and intent perceived but never defined. Today, Black Willow Reach remains unremarkable on maps. Barges pass through it daily. The water still runs deep and slow in spring, darkened by silt and shadow. Those who work the river continue to speak quietly of stretches where the current feels hesitant, where the surface lies too smooth, where depth seems to wait rather than flow. The account of 1905 offers no conclusion. It does not name what was seen. It does not insist upon meaning. It records only that experienced men encountered something beneath the water that did not behave as water should, and that after witnessing it, they chose restraint in words, in record, and in memory. The river went on, and whatever moved beneath it was never seen again, at least, not in a way that demanded explanation.